The offseason moves have begun for the Toronto Blue Jays. They're already making moves and they're in the market for some more. Apparently, a report came out that they are very interested in signing a former MVP, and I think you can guess who that is. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, before we get into this video, I want to let you know that it is sponsored by Rentals.ca. And if you didn't know, Rentals.ca is Canada's largest apartment hunting network, and they've helped us both out a ton. But we know it's time to make moves for the Toronto Blue Jays. We know that we've been putting the foot on the gas here. We want things to happen in this offseason, but if it's time to make a move in your own personal life, use rentals.ca because they make that transition so much more seamless and they can help you out a ton. The website is super clean and easy to use, and they're available countrywide.
Yeah, and the best part is you can pinpoint the exact location where you want to find your new apartment or whatever you're looking for on the interactive map, which is very, very cool. And Peter, like you said, we both have family of views that you've personally used it, so it's something we both stand by. So make sure to check it out in the pinned comment and link in the description if you think it's time to make a move in your life, because the Jays, like you said, are officially started making moves, and let's get into that. Right now, before we get into the actual move, let's start with a crazy-ish report that came out from Bob Nightingale. So the season's officially over, and reports are starting to flow out from MLB writers and MLB insiders. And this is about the time that starts to happen. So this happened yesterday. It says the Blue Jays have strong interest in free agent outfielder Cody Bellinger. Toronto is looking to add a left-handed bat this offseason, and per Nightingale are interested in Jock Peterson as well if they miss out on Bellinger, which is something we might cover in a future video. We're going to focus on Bellinger today. And Peter, this is the first official report that says they actually are pursuing Bellinger and have interest. You've seen speculation from Ben Nicholson Smith and Shai Davidi, which usually leads to something like this. But this is the first report from an official reporter. And Peter, he is about the ideal target if we exclude Shohei Ohtani. There's no one I'd rather have more than Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, he looks healthy again, and he's not the MVP level player that he was in 2018, 2019, but he's pretty damn close to that. And I feel like he's a more all-around player now than he was back then. He struck out 87 times in 130 games last year,
Yep.
Nick. That's a huge decrease. That is a massive decrease compared to years prior. I mean, he was a strikeout machine. Look at those numbers over there earlier in his career. So, look, he's a good player. He's a very good player. He's a guy that can play multiple positions in the outfield, can play some first base. He's got big time power in that bat. Maybe the 26 home runs don't show that he has light tower power, but we know what kind of player he is. And I see a lot of Jays fans on Twitter and a lot of Jays fans that are skeptical of maybe bringing in Cody Bellinger and don't want to give him a long-term deal. They're saying over the past 3 years he's had two really horrible seasons and then one good season. But let me counter that with he's finally healthy now. He didn't have two working shoulders before this year with the Chicago Cubs, and you could tell his arm strength was affected. His swing was definitely affected, and he looked like a shell of himself, and that's exactly what he was in his last 2 years with the Los Angeles Dodgers. But he gets to Chicago, a little bit less pressure on him. He can just go out there and play freely. You see the power come back. You see the base stealing come back. You see that cannon of an arm in center field come back. Like, he's a five-tool player. This is a guy that you want in your lineup. And I know it's going to cost a pretty penny for the Blue Jays. I know they're probably going to have to give him an extra year to pry him from another team that wants to get him. But it could be worth it, Nick, because this is the exact player that the Blue Jays need. And they need to do whatever they can in their power to go out and get him, because another team is going to swoop him up, and that'll be detrimental to the Jays.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, he's a former MVP winner. Just 4 years ago, we had the horrible stretch there in 2021 and 2022, but he turned it around. We knew he was capable of it, and he had 47 home runs back in 2019. And I think we don't sacrifice anything on defense, assuming Kevin Kiermaier might be a little bit of a better defender, but he's an elite defender. He's a left-handed hitter, and he hits for power. So there's no one I'd rather have than him, aside from Shohei Ohtani, which is a discussion for another day. But another thing to quickly discuss, we can get back to Bellinger as well, but Jorge Soler is opting out of his contract with the Marlins and will become a free agent. Now, Peter, Soler is another guy who probably more so than Bellinger, has huge power. We've seen the amount of home runs he's hit. He hit over 30 last year. What are you more looking? Who would you rather have on, given the contracts? Would you rather have Bellinger or would you rather have Soler? Or do you think the Jays can go out and make a move for both? Or do you think that would make the outfield a bit too cluttered?
I think Soler is kind of a last resort type of deal, where if you can't get anybody, if you strike out on anybody, you go out and overpay for Jorge Soler. But when it comes to Cody Bellinger, he fits what the Blue Jays want in terms of roster flexibility, positional flexibility. You don't have to DH him ever. Maybe if he needs an off day every now and then, you can put him in the DH role and all that. But the Blue Jays DH position is very fluid because we know George Springer needs a day every now and then. He's getting up there in age. Vladdy needs a day. Maybe Bo, if he's dealing with an issue and he can't play the field, you don't want that bat out of the lineup. So if you're signing a pure DH in Jorge Soler, who could maybe play the left field or right field every now and then, you're kind of handcuffing yourself, and that's not what the Blue Jays want to be doing. They don't want a full-time DH. They want that role to be fluid. Sometimes it hurts them, sometimes it helps them, but I think Cody Bellinger is the main target for this Blue Jays front office, and then everything else is going to fall into place. So go out and get Bellinger, and if you can't, then you go out and get someone like Soler or Jock Peterson or a player of that nature.
Yeah, I would definitely not mind Jorge Soler on the team because of his power, but I mean Bellinger fits the bill just a little bit more. And like you said, he mentioned here about Jock Peterson, which was discussed in another video, and he didn't mention Soler, so maybe the Jays are looking for someone with a bit more versatility to go forward, especially given last year with Brandon Belt and then with the way Vladdy and we have Alejandro Kirk kind of impacts that as well. He's not very. You need a pinch run for him a lot, and you need to have versatility on the team, but. Okay, moving on to something which just came out a couple of minutes ago, and that is from the Blue Jays Twitter. Roster update, we've exercised our 2-year conditional club option, which is $21 million for Chad Green, given the 2024 and 2025 seasons. We can touch on this briefly before I wrap up. This was actually a big question in Jays Nation, whether they would even exercise any of the team's contract, given his over 5 ERA and his brief stint with the team. They did not exercise his, I believe, 3-year, 28 or 29 million. They stuck with a 2-year, 21, so about a $10.5 million AAV. What are your thoughts on this? I think it makes total sense. They obviously stuck with him for the rehab last year. He showed good signs of a very, very elite pitcher like he was with the Yankees his entire career. So, I mean, we got him back, but it did cost kind of a pretty penny given his performance last year specifically.
Yeah, I think this kind of reveals to us that Jordan Hicks is probably gone. He's probably going to look for another opportunity somewhere else. But Chad Green, apart from his first outing in a Blue Jay uniform, he was great. I mean, he had that one outing in Colorado where he gave up, I believe, 5 earned runs in like a third of an inning, and that put his ERA to like a 98 or something ridiculous like that, and then it was an uphill climb. So he had a few great outings after that. He was a shutdown guy, and I felt confident whenever he stepped foot on that mound for the Blue Jays. I don't know about you, Nick, but when Chad Green got the call to come out of that bullpen and he stepped out on that mound for the Blue Jays, I was like, okay, he's coming in here, he's getting 3 outs, or we're getting home free. I felt that way with Chad Green, and he gives that kind of calming presence. He's a veteran guy. $10.5 million is a little steep, which leads me to believe that money that would have been Jordan Hicks's is now going to Chad Green. So it's unfortunate in that sense, but the Blue Jays have a lot of internal pieces to make up for that departure of Hicks, and I'm good with this. They needed to bring back Chad Green. That's why they signed the original deal in the first place. It wasn't just a 1-year thing. It was to get him for an extra couple of years, and they did that. So I'm happy with the move.
Yeah, and saw John Schneider use, obviously, Chad Green in high leverage situations as the season went on, as we were fighting for a playoff spot. And that's a good point about Jordan Hicks. I mean, I wouldn't suspect they re-signed both of these guys, but maybe they go way over the budget, whatever limit they set and get all of them. But either way, I think we have one of the best bullpens in baseball with or without Jordan Hicks. Obviously, Hicks helps a lot, but if Green can get back to his past self, which was his entire career, a middling, low 3 to mid 3 ERA reliever with very, very good stuff, then, obviously that helps limit the departure of Jordan Hicks a lot. But I don't know. I'm very happy with it as well. I mean, you can't really complain too much. It's $10.5 million. Someone probably would have given him a similar contract elsewhere, maybe a little bit cheaper. But again, the Blue Jays need to make these type of moves if they want to stay competitive. And the bullpen is not something that we want to skimp out on. So we saw what happens when you do that in a couple of prior seasons, even as recent as 2021. But any final thoughts before we wrap up? A pretty news-filled video, and I suspect very, very soon more news is going to come out as everyone is kind of waiting for the Shohei Ohtani domino to fall, and some people are saying that it might happen sooner than we may think.
I hope so. I hope so. It'll be an exciting piece of news to go out and read. But next season is going to be a big bounce back for Eric Swanson. I know he was great early in the year, and then he struggled a little bit down the stretch just because his usage was so high, and the Blue Jays had to rely on him in a lot of close ball games. But next year is going to be huge for him. I'm looking for him to get back into that seventh, eighth inning role with the Blue Jays. Maybe Chad Green is going to be that seventh inning guy, and then obviously Jordan Romano steps back into that closer role. But those guys are going to have to step up, and they're going to have to find a way to duplicate whatever success they had in 2023. So it's going to be interesting to follow that situation, and hopefully the Shohei Ohtani news for the Toronto Blue Jays comes out soon.
Yeah, hopefully he goes to the Jays. That'll wrap the video. If you want to see our video from a couple days ago, click on your screen now. We'll see you guys tomorrow where there's sure to be more news.